Britse Lagerhuis. Zijn autobiografie is net verschenen in de Nederlandse vertaling. En daarin blikt hij terug op roerige jaren. Hij is hier samen met correspondent Suse van Kleef. En we voeren dit gesprek in het Engels. Want dat is wel zo makkelijk voor iedereen.
Yeah, yes, I mean. Suse, first things first. The biggest news this weekend in the UK. Boris Johnson is getting married and he expects another child.
Yes.
Do you know how many children he has?
Not for sure. So we know of 4 with his ex-wife and 1 from an extramarital affair.
Yeah.
And then there's rumors about another one, which he never denied, but also never said they were true. So we know about 5, maybe 6, and 1 more on the way.
Oh, okay. Keep counting. Mr. Bercow, a very, very warm welcome to you as well.
Thank you very much indeed, Eric.
How was your flight to England, to Holland?
Well,
any troubles at the border?
I'm pleased to tell you that the flight was uneventful.
Uneventful.
Which is exactly what one aspires to experience in a flight.
And
nothing much happened.
Nothing much happened. No troubles at the border?
No.
Not yet.
Well, that is said ominously.
Yes. Well.
In October, your last term as Speaker of the House came to an end. How do you enjoy life so far as a normal citizen?
I'm loving life.
Yeah?
I'm trying to earn a living, have some fun and do some good. I won't say I am retired. I'm retired from the role of Speaker after just over 10 years, but I'm doing a lot of speaking to business audiences. I've got a little role doing some academic work with a university. I've written a book.
Don't you miss it?
Sport. I'm seeing my family. I'm having fun.
Don't you miss it at any time?
No, because I don't look back. People often ask that perfectly natural question after all that period of time, 10 years and more, 22 years as a Member of Parliament. Don't
Being
you
in
look
the
back?
arena?
Fine, no, it's irresistible and you wish that you could go back to it. No, because you feel that nothing is forever. It was the most enormous honour and privilege. I did the job to the best of my ability. I feel that I have been very fortunate. I have no plans to die tomorrow. But if I were to die tomorrow, I would die happy, thinking, wow, I've been incredibly lucky. But I'm not looking back. I'm looking forward and thinking, well, that's the end of one chapter, and now you move on to a different phase of your life.
Well, we are going to look back, just for a short period of time.
OK.
Because you earned quite a reputation, especially because we all know your very unconventional style. Let's watch.
The government chief whip has absolutely no business whatsoever shouting from a sedentary position. Order! The honourable gentleman will remain in the chamber. Order, I am simply and politely informing the Prime Minister of the very long-established procedure with which everybody, including the Prime Minister, must comply. Get a grip of yourself, man. Calm. Take up yoga, you'll find it beneficial, man. I say to member... Order! Resume your seat, Mr. Harper. You don't stand when I'm standing, and that's the end of it. Calm yourself. You may be a cheeky chappy, but you're also an exceptionally noisy one.
Cheeky chappy.
A cheeky chappy. Do you enjoy watching that?
Well, it's rather peculiar observing one's own performance.
Yeah.
It's quite fun.
Yeah.
Look, we have an expression in the UK that somebody is a Marmite character, because Marmite is a spread which some people love and other people hate.
Everybody
and I have
hates
my
it
supporters
outside
and
of
my
England.
detractors. Well, maybe everybody outside the UK hates it, I don't know. But I must say that, notwithstanding that sedentary chunter from you just now, in evident criticism of my performance, I find around Europe there are lots of very, very, very friendly people.
Well, there are, and that was my question to Suse. John Bercow has become quite a phenomenon, but not only in the UK, also in Holland.
Yes.
Why is that?
Well, I think mostly worldwide, maybe, because big parts of the world have become obsessed with the whole Brexit saga. So the viewing figures of debates and votes, for example, were worldwide were ridiculously high. And you've seen some examples of his, well, quite colourful character. So a lot of people thought that was quite interesting. And I think during that Brexit process, his role became more and more important because both the government of Theresa May and the government of Boris Johnson tried to pass over Parliament, tried to avoid scrutiny in this Brexit process. And Mr. Bercow found it his job to stand up for Parliament and make sure that there were enough debates and votes over Brexit. So those were quite controversial rulings, which made a lot of enemies in the Brexiteer part of Parliament and made him some friends in the Remain part of Parliament. And then also in the country, in the UK, the opinions about him are very much divided because of that. So I think they agree on one thing, and that's his big influence on the whole Brexit process, and that I think that made him, well, maybe worldwide, quite well known.
Yeah, but also there were some remarkable things. Let's go through a few things. As a Speaker of the House, you always urged your right honourable friends in Parliament to behave themselves. But in your book, we read it. Everything.
I'm very pleased you did.
Of course we did.
In your book, you attack some politicians, quite personal and quite harsh. David Cameron is called a lightweight, deeply snobbish. Theresa May you call her dull as ditch water. is that
You're nodding.
Is that the right honourable thing to do?
Well, I think the honourable and proper thing to do when you write a book is to be candid. And people across the United Kingdom, and I think very much beyond the UK, across Europe, across the world, say that what they want is candour and honesty and straightforwardness in politicians. And it seems to me that there's absolutely no point whatsoever in writing an autobiography or a memoir and pulling one's punches, prevaricating, question-dodging, sitting on the fence, taking no position. So at the end of a career of 22 years, and having had a wonderful vantage point in the Speaker's chair, I sat through several Prime Ministers. All I'm doing is saying, this is what I thought of them. Now, what you've done, and I make no complaints about this, you're a broadcaster, and it's exactly what I would expect. You've taken out the juiciest bits. So, for example, about Theresa May, I said that she's a very dedicated public citizen. I said that Cameron was very fleet of foot and fluent and dexterous at the dispatch box, and so on and so forth. But you have picked quite reasonably on the most critical things. But this is what you said,
deeply snobbish.
And those are things that I've said. Well, it happens to have the advantage of being true. I mean, it may well be that not everybody welcomes it, but in my view, David was born with not a silver spoon in his mouth, but a silver trolley service in his mouth. And he always exuded an air of entitlement, that sense that it was the natural order of things that, of course, people like him, who are very expensively educated, very posh, very well-connected, should run things. Why? Oh, because that's the way it's always been. And that's the way it should be.
You're just so
he was capable, but he was snobbish.
Just being candid.
During your farewell in Parliament, the MP Boris Johnson delivered a quite touching farewell speech. Let's have a look.
And as befits a distinguished former Wimbledon competitor, you have sat up there in your high chair, and not just as an umpire, ruthlessly adjudicating on the finer points of parliamentary procedure with your trademark Tony Montana scowl, Mr. Speaker. Not just as a commentator, offering your own opinions on the rallies you are watching, sometimes acerbic and sometimes kindly, but above all as a player in your own right, peppering every part of the chamber with your own thoughts and opinions, like some tennis ball machine, some uncontrollable tennis ball machine, Mr. Speaker, delivering a series of literally unplayable, unreturnable, formally unreturnable volleys and smashes.
Yeah, Boris Johnson is referring to tennis, no coincidence.
Yeah.
As a kid, you dreamed of becoming a professional tennis player.
I did.
So what went wrong?
I wasn't good enough. I
just
learned to teach. I qualified as a tennis coach, and for many years in university holidays, I gave tennis lessons principally to beginners or intermediate players, but I just wasn't good enough.
This is
young to make a living.
Young John Bercow as a tennis player. Beautiful, beautiful,
yes, I think
touching,
was,
quite touching.
Yes, I think that was when I was a finalist at Pinner in Middlesex in August 1973. But I did play with Boris Johnson. Now, Boris Johnson's commentary on me at the last Prime Minister's Questions, over which I presided, was very witty and very beautifully crafted and amusingly delivered. I should say that although we clashed over the handling of Brexit, and he occasionally excoriated me either publicly or privately because he thought that I had got the balance wrong or in some way been unfair to the government. We never had a rancorous row.
And we did play
play tennis at the Foreign Office residence that he occupied when he was Foreign Secretary, and we played 3 sets. And, well, I think the fairest thing I can say is that he was very sporting.
Yeah.
And he took his 6-love, 6-love, 6-love defeat with impeccable good grace. So he's better at politics than he is at tennis.
You enjoy delivering those lines.
Yeah, I once watched Boris a year or 2 before playing in a pro-am or charity match at the Queen's Club, but it was doubles, and he was playing with Andy Murray.
Whoa.
And I don't mean this unkindly to Boris, but of course Andy Murray is world-class. He's a Grand Slam champion and so on.
Of course.
Andy made Boris look better than he was.
Credits to Andy Murray there.
Credit to Andy Murray, who deserves credit on many fronts.
In your book, sometimes it's quite personal. You describe how you were bullied as a boy because you had trouble with your face, acne on your face.
Yes.
Some people called you crater face.
Yes.
Yes.
Moonbase alpha.
Moonbase alpha.
Yeah.
That's quite funny.
Well, kids do tend to tease each other. They look for a point of differentiation or vulnerability or weakness. So although we can laugh about it now, and I do laugh about it now, you know, at the time it was what bothered me. The funny thing is that over the course of my life, I've often been noted for being very short. People have often said, oh, he's tiny, he's very short, needs to stand up and that sort of thing. But I can honestly say that I was never bothered as a child, and I've never been bothered about being short. In fact, I'm married to somebody who's considerably taller than I. That's never given me a complex. I've never had any anxiety or feeling of inferiority. But I was very, very, very scarred, both physically and psychologically at school, by having severe acne, because, of course, it is immediately visible to everybody who meets you. So my heart goes out to any young person who is suffering such torment or some other malady, which is readily distinguishing that person from everybody else. That did bother me.
Yeah, we read the book and we discussed this, and we thought, is it possible that your career is actually, the whole of your career is just to get back at your bullies, to show them, ha-ha, look what I achieved?
No, I don't think so. I mean, it's quite an interesting and, to some degree, convenient explanation of somebody's life, but I don't think it's accurate. The truth of the matter, I think, more accurately expressed, is that I've always been and seen myself as an outsider. You know, I was a member of the Conservative Party. I came from the wing of the Conservative Party that paid a mortgage and bought its own furniture. I didn't come from some inherited wealth. I wasn't an aristocrat. I didn't have great advantages. And in the end, of course, by becoming Speaker, I became a member of the establishment, but I was never chosen by the establishment. In fact, when I stood for office as Speaker, David Cameron, as leader of the Conservative Party, had an attitude of ABB, anybody but Bercow. So, you know, he was very much against, he was determined to stop me. I had the sheer temerity, the cheek, the audacity, in the face of his opposition, nevertheless, to stand in an election. And what's more, I had the cheek to win. Well, by my troth, that really was beyond the pale as far as he was concerned. So, yeah, I suppose I was always, as I say, coming at as an outsider. And even when I was in post,
well, you write in your book
tried to reform things.
To be noticed. That was your goal, your first goal as a politician. Or
yes, as a politician. And I think that when I first stood for Speaker, if truth be told, I was, as I think a lot of politicians are, thinking, well, what's my chance? How can I prove myself? In what way can I secure advantage?
Because if you read your book...
Later, I started to think, well, that's all very well, but what would I do? How would I make a difference? In what way would I bring about a change?
In the first, you're much more interested in politics just to be in politics than about...
In the game.
In the game.
I think that's true, Suse. I think that's true. For a long time, I didn't have any particular aspiration to be a senior minister, and I certainly never entertained any ambition to be Prime Minister or anything. But I think you're right. I think I did want to be at the heart of things. And I probably saw myself, as most politicians conventionally do, trying to climb the greasy pole. The truth of the matter was that I wasn't a natural for climbing the greasy pole. I wasn't a good team player. I didn't aspire to be a minister. I didn't think I'd be a very good minister. I'm not a natural team player. I didn't think I would be asked by David Cameron to join the
you were
government.
also not that popular in
And I wasn't
part
that
of
popular. I wasn't very popular in my own party.
Good thing to point out.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be asked to be in, shadow cabinet.
Yeah,
You just weren't asked.
I served in the shadow cabinet, but I came to the conclusion that I wasn't particularly comfortable.
Yeah.
This was the real point, having to sing from a collective hymn sheet dictated by somebody else. And so when I left the Conservative front bench in 2004, my wife and I discussed it, and I resolved that I wouldn't try to come back as a shadow minister or minister. I would one day have a crack at becoming Speaker, and I then gradually worked out what would I do. I wanted to be a change maker, I wanted to be a reformer, I wanted to be a model.
Let's get back to the here and now.
I'm not Speaker anymore, is
So
it?
now let us speak.
Of course.
You've got a lot of words, Mr. Bercow. Let's get back to the here and now. Today, Brexit negotiations started, Suse. What do you think about it?
Well, it's the first day of phase 2, so they're going to talk about the future relationship that the EU and the UK will have in the coming years. It's looking quite grim at the moment, I think. I think trust between the two parties is very low after 3 years of very messy negotiations. There's a lot of, they are annoyed with each other. I see the coming months a big row coming about fish. It's going to be difficult about regulation. It's going to be difficult about the Irish border again. So they have not even a year to make this happen. At this point, it's quite pessimistic.
Yeah, Mr. Bercow, what do you think? Will the Brexit be a disaster, or maybe will it be a hidden gem?
I hope that it will prove less damaging than I fear. But having left office, I think I can be completely explicit. My own personal view is that Brexit is the biggest foreign policy blunder of the post-war period on the part of the United Kingdom. It is a colossal mistake. I rather agree with what's just been said. I think it's looking very difficult or even hazardous at the moment. It is early days. There's quite a lot of shadow boxing, position taking. People issue declaratory statements. And in the end, you have to get into the interstices of the negotiations. So a lot can shift between now and the end of the year. But if you ask me, do I think that there will be a comprehensive free trade agreement between the UK and the EU by December the 31st of this year, the short answer is no. I think there may be some embryonic,
very short
fledgling deal, but I think it will be of a skeleton character with heads of agreement and then more work to be done.
Or a no deal. I mean,
or even a no deal. It's still on the table.
Very possible.
A no deal is on the table. Towards the end of the last Parliament, I enabled, no more, I enabled colleagues, if they wished, and they did, to pass legislation that would stop a no-deal Brexit unless specifically authorised by Parliament. However, that was up until the 31st of October. As a result of the election, the government's got a big majority. No deal is back on the table. My own personal view is that no deal, crashing out of the Union and trading on World Trade Organisation terms, would be calamitous for the UK. And I would just very politely...
You can imagine why Brexiteers don't really like it.
I can imagine.
I mean...
Well, they're entitled to their view, but they suffer from the material disadvantage of being wrong.
This is the perfect end.
Only the future knows what will come. Thank you so much. De autobiografie Unspeakable van John Bercow ligt nu in de winkels. Thank you so much.
Cabaretier Bert Visser toert door het land met zijn 13e solovoorstelling. En binnen